Is it me or is this whole don't feed your kids sugar thing kind of like a fad for moms? The reason why I ask is because I don't know if not feeding your kids sugar at all is a good idea, right? And here's why. Because you need sugar for energy, okay? So I have yet to see a kid that has like a sugar-free diet and they healthy or happy looking. Like they always look tired. Like they always look like they done. And in my opinion, that makes sense that they'll look like they done. They have like no energy, right? So of course we know the extremes with children and their diets. And here in the United States, childhood obesity is a big problem. I even heard a content creator say something about how food stamps basically feed kids sugar. It doesn't really nourish anybody. And I've seen that, like, somebody with a food stamp card, they got a bunch of sodas, they got a bunch of processed foods, boxed cereals, especially when they're having boxed cereals. Them stamps hit. Because when it's all cash, it's all bags. It's all bags of cereal. But, when them stamps hit, you see boxes. Anyway, so this has been my approach. I really stay away from processed foods as a whole, because I myself don't care for processed foods. And of course, my husband, he's so used to not eating processed anymore from being with me. So naturally, we don't really feed processed foods to our children, right? So this whole idea that, oh, kids shouldn't have sugar at all, I don't know about that. Like I said again, like they need sugar for energy. You need sugar. You need energy to grow, right? They're growing, they're developing. And, sugar is essential to that, right? With that being said, I'm not gonna lie, I went a little overboard because ever since I got pregnant with my daughter, with Jazz, I've been wanting sweets like 24/7. I'm into sweets. And I love baking cookies, and there are different techniques to baking cookies, right? I've been trying different ingredients and everything. Kids, they never complain, of course. It's cookies every day, right? And it just made me start thinking because I was like, okay, they get to have their sweets because they're at a point where they're weaning, and it's like you give them regular milk now, right? I give them whole milk. I know there's a debate about whether you should do almond or soy, whatever. That's a whole other conversation. But I just kept feeling like, how you gonna give a child milk with no cookies? Maybe that's not the best approach to take, but that's just how I was feeling, right? Now, I'm not saying it's okay, but that was just kind of my mentality at first. By the way, if you get your baby some cheap diapers and they learn how to walk and they flop down on their butt, it's not a good experience. For them, it's not, well, not for you as a parent either. But, I'm just saying, like, them really bad diapers, this is kind of like a commercial. This ain't really got nothing to do with what I'm talking about. This is just something that I figured out. We tried cheap diapers one time. It was like, I'd rather skip out on going out. I'm just not going to go out as much, But anyway, so this sugar situation, I was like, okay. One thing I started realizing when they were eating cookies, even though I was making them at home, was that the kids were pretty fussy and argumentative. And sometimes it would be difficult to get them to go to bed too. Like they'd stay up and they play a whole lot more. Now, as for tonight, Jazz is up talking, as she always does, and this is her routine. But I started to realize, like, she was way more talkative, like, and always just up. Like, she wouldn't really sleep through the night. Sorry for that. Now, on top of that, you got Junior, and he's pretty chill compared to Jazz, right? And so, okay, you got those two personalities. But one thing I realized was that they would be I don't want to say unruly, but they were way more fussy. They were always like arguing and bickering amongst each other, right? And I don't mean to jump here, but there are like correlations of studies that show like having a lot of sugar in your diet correlating to like behavioral issues and things like that. So, I faintly remembered it. I didn't do any research. What I did was I conducted an experiment. And what I decided to do was I decided that instead of getting them or baking them a batch of cookies like I always do, just get them some fresh fruit. So what I've been doing is giving them fresh fruit. And when I tell you that they are so much easier to manage. Like, I could only imagine if I had fed them something processed, right? That would have been wild. But just something that I make from scratch at home, the amount of sugar that it takes to make a batch of cookies, and when I make a batch of cookies, it's 15 cookies. Is that 15? Yeah. No, that's 20 cookies per batch, right? 20 cookies. Saying it out loud, that just kind of sounds crazy. But yeah, I mean, they'll eat some sweets now. One thing about kids, they will eat some sweets. They put it away. But yeah, that's just my quick take on kids having sugar. I don't think there's anything wrong with sugar. I think that as long as they're getting it through fruits and vegetables, that's pretty good. Every now and then do sweets. Processed, I'm going to automatically say no to that. But that's just me.